He has to be more careful with his language, especially if he talks about things like
So do
execution.
Democrats.
Can you please let me finish? I show you respect.
Ben,
show me
please.
respect.
Okay.
That's what needs to happen in this country. And the president has to show respect. He has to show honor. He has to show integrity. Yesterday, he called a woman piggy. Now he's calling an astronaut who's a Navy veteran a traitor. He has to be more careful and precise with his language, especially because he's a commander.
Democrats call him a Nazi.
He has a unique responsibility.
Recently, Abby Phillip on her CNN program hosted MAGA pundit Ben Ferguson, one of my least favorite people, right up there with Scott Jennings, as well as Lee McGowan, Richard Quest, Neera Tanden, Tim Parrish, and Tom Rykoff, to talk about the President of the United States calling Democratic senators traitors and essentially calling for their execution because they had the audacity to say that the military needs to refuse illegal orders, which is actually just a statement of fact. So they got into a pretty heated conversation about all of this, and I want to watch it with you. I'm going to have my opinions to interject. That is what I am doing here, and then I absolutely want to know what you think about it in the comments because, you know, I keep thinking this can't get any more bonkers, and it keeps getting more bonkers. Anyway, let's check it out.
Welcome back. As we were just discussing, I mean, there's a disagreement here about whether this needed to be said in the first place, but let's say that it didn't need to be said and that military members know already that they should only follow legal orders. And why on earth would the president then pivot and threaten those members of Congress for saying something that was so plainly obvious?
Go ahead.
Can I just say what I think is so odd about this is what is the problem to Donald Trump in saying don't do illegal things? I mean, why is that any threat to the president? You would think that most presidents are actually not planning to do anything illegal. And let me just finish. And I guess I would just come back to this fact, which is that his own Pentagon lawyers right now are disputing the legality of the Venezuelan just shoot downs of boats. And so I think the idea that the far right is saying, what could you imagine? And I would disagree with you, Paul. I think this is totally wrong. When we have a current situation in which the president's own lawyers, people who work for the Pentagon, are saying it's possibly illegal that these actions are happening. Now,
right, let me ask you a question.
Just let me finish. Imagine a year from now.
Hold on, Paul. I do want to get.
They weren't specific because who knows what will be next.
Let me say this. Let me say.
Hold on a second. Go ahead.
Who knows what will be next?
Neera, hang on a second. Let me let Ben.
This is the reason why the president responded the way he did. It is very clear this video was put out without any reason behind it. There was no red flag to put this out. It was done clearly for fundraising, number one.
Broken the law.
Let me finish, and then you can yell at me if you want to. It was clearly done, premeditated, fundraising. You got emails going out at 6 o'clock on the day this happened. That was clearly orchestrated and pre-planned.
Hold on, Neera.
Again, and the second thing is, you have a president that's pretty used to Democrats saying, we don't pay attention to laws. We don't enforce laws with ICE. We don't enforce laws with the border. We don't enforce laws with anything we don't like with Donald Trump. So this was a wink and a nod to military officials that if you don't like Donald Trump, you don't have to follow anything that he says that you don't really want to. And oh, by the way, the caveat, the best part about this is, then when he responds, we will literally be so shallow because there is no issue here. We're just trying to raise money off of it.
But Ben,
that's it. This is a money game.
Ben, if this is just a fundraising ploy by Democrats, why is Trump calling it a seditious conspiracy? Why is he likening it to treason? Why is he suggesting that
when you suggest that military leaders should go against the president of the United States of America? Well, it was the Democratic Party.
That's not what they said.
I'm just taking you at your own argument.
And I'll
if it's a fundraising ploy,
don't expand.
Why is the president then acting as if this is a conspiracy to overthrow the government?
Abby,
but wait. We were all here on January 6th when he called the people breaking into the Capitol patriots. How do those things?
He said go peacefully.
He called them patriots.
He said go peacefully.
Ben,
no, the majority of the people there he believes.
Ben, you and I are talking about different things. We are talking about different things. In the moment, as they were breaking into the Capitol, Donald Trump released a video from the White House, and he called those insurrectionists patriots. He proceeded to then pardon them. How can that same man turn around and say a video that you just called a fundraising ploy is a seditious conspiracy?
Are they raising money off of it?
But
it's not because I say it. It's because Mark Kelly sent out a fundraising email. I didn't do that. Mark did.
Can I take a
Mark sent it out.
Ben Ferguson, is right up there with Scott Jennings for me. I have called both men disingenuous. I think this argument he's trying to make is absolutely disgusting, and I think he knows, I would say it's delusional, except he knows better. And to compare the video that these folks made, to say that's a fundraising stunt is pretty rich, coming from a Donald Trump supporter, right, who launched a meme coin and who Melania launched a meme coin, right, to muddy up, to accuse Democrats of trying to raise money on BS while defending Donald Trump with the stakes and the Trump University and the Bibles and the sneakers and the hats. I mean, it's absolutely mind-boggling. And I think the more they say it, the more they come to look at the look in his eyes. He's got a crazed look in his eyes when I sit here and look at Ben Ferguson. These people felt compelled to make a video reminding, they get to this more eloquently later in the video, so I'll save it. Because there is precedent of this administration flouting the law and overfunding ICE and sending troops into American cities and blowing up what are purportedly drug boats in warlike actions without the approval of Congress and without any evidence, all of this is illegal. And the big thing is that the Department of War has purged top-level military officials. And again, they get to all this, so I don't want to... Let's get back to the video.
All right, go ahead.
So sitting here in between this, as it continues to go on, this is how our military feels right now. This is how the men and women of our military feel right now. They feel like they're in the middle of this.
Yeah,
every single day.
Don't put out the video.
I'm still talking. And that they're a political chew toy in the middle of this madness. But the president has a unique responsibility to set the command climate, to set the tone, to set an example. He has to be more careful with his language, especially if he talks about things like
So do
execution.
Democrats.
Can you please let me finish? I show you respect.
Ben,
show me
please.
respect.
Okay.
That's what needs to happen in this country. And the president has to show respect. He has to show honor. He has to show integrity. Yesterday, he called a woman piggy. Now he's calling an astronaut who's a Navy veteran a traitor. He has to be more careful and precise with his language, especially because he's a commander.
Democrats call him a Nazi.
He has a unique responsibility. He is the president.
They called him a Nazi and a fascist.
And he is setting the tone
celebrated when he got shot. Don't lecture us about words, please.
All right.
I mean, hey, if the shoe fits, I mean, that's just the height of MAGA hypocrisy right there. Don't lecture us about words. These people, like Ben Ferguson, think it's absolutely fine when they do it, when their dear leader does it. But when it's coming, even semi-criticism from anybody else, it's sedition. Those are the president's words. And I think this guy is absolutely right. You have to hold the president to a higher standard. Now, what's not being said is decorum and leadership are things that are absolutely not within Donald Trump, right? This is not a man fit to lead this country. He never has been. And that's the obvious elephant in the room.
The sitting vice president also called him a Nazi, so don't.
And we just made swastikas.
Okay, here's another thing that this, to your point, does anti-woke mean that swastikas and nooses are now no longer called hate symbols in the United States Coast Guard? According to the Washington Post, they discovered a change in the Coast Guard's harassing behavior prevention response and accountability policy that appears to raise that very question. Here are the two recent versions of that policy. On the left there, you see a document from 2023 that states that depictions of nooses and swastikas, also Confederate symbols, for example, would constitute, quote, a potential hate incident. But now, look on the right, and you'll see that the Coast Guard wants to call them potentially divisive symbols. An anonymous Coast Guard official told the Washington Post, "We don't deserve the trust of the nation if we are unclear about the divisiveness of swastikas." I should also add that it appears that the Coast Guard is going to take another look at this now that it has been made public. But I have no idea why this would even come up. But I mean, what do you think is behind it?
Well, I honestly don't know. I mean, aside from like a swastika is a hate symbol. It represents hate. What else does it represent if not hate? How many people died under a swastika? If I drew a swastika on your car and you were a Jewish person, what am I saying to you? If I put a noose on your car, what would I be saying to you? When it's associated with certain groups of people that have been treated in a certain way, that is why they become hate symbols. So for any part of our military to adjust their qualifications like this on hate symbols, it should be a glaring red light for us that we are in real trouble, because this is very problematic.
The woke push taking us to this place where we're sort of like softening the punishment for putting a swastika or a noose somewhere in the military?
I think that the folks over at Washington Post must have gone to like claymiles.com and got jokes out of his file of jokes and put, this is not a real story. The commandant of the acting commandant of the Coast Guard came out and said, this is categorically false. This is not their policy. I go back to our military members again. They know, Paul knows this just like I do. They know that there are standards and that these are hate symbols. And I will tell you, as Paul again will note, when you're getting shot at, you're getting blown up, you don't care who comes in the QRF to come help you
I should
and get
hope
you
not.
out. It's all your
They-
brothers and your sisters. And so
That's true.
you're trying to play politics. This story,
I'm
no,
not
not you,
trying
not
to
you.
play
I'm sorry, not you.
politics.
The Washington Post is
they
trying to
got it
play
wrong.
What the
politics
Washington Post
with a
did-
fake
They lied.
story.
What the Washington-
That's not true.
It's not
They
a fake story,
literally
because here's the
pulled
thing.
this out of
Everybody in the
thin air.
military-
I just want to interject. I think that's a telling slip that you also hear from the Ben Fergusons and other MAGA people. It's like, you're trying to play politics. And she says, I'm not trying to play politics. Then he corrects and says, okay, the Washington Post is trying to play politics. It's intensely personal for MAGA when you even question or push back in any way against one of their stances. You're an enemy, and they get that from Trump. That's the malignant narcissism, right? Anything but adoration for the dear leader in lockstep marks you. You're either with us or you're against us. And yet, they know that that is unpopular and wrong because they bend over backwards to try and normalize it.
Everybody in the military, including you in the Marine Corps, me in the Army, knows check the reg. Check what's in writing. And in writing, it's up there for the whole world to see. You can find it on the internet. It does not make it clear, right? It says that this is a potentially divisive thing. Swastikas and nooses, there's zero tolerance for them in the military.
Of course.
And there should be zero tolerance for anybody who doesn't understand that. If you work in government and you don't understand that, you need to resign today and find another job.
Did you see the commandant's? Did you see the
Did you see the regulation? Did you see the writing? Did you
I
see what
saw
it said?
the writing. Let me say this,
Read
because
what
I
it
think
said.
it matters.
Right? Change the language.
Hold on a
The
second.
Post got this wrong. The U.S. Coast Guard put out this tweet, quote, the claims the U.S. Coast Guard will no longer classify swastikas, nooses, or other extremist imagery as prohibited symbols are categorically false.
That's not what the Post story says.
That is what the U.S.
That
Coast
is
Guard
not.
says.
Yeah, I know that's
The
what
Coast Guard is saying
Hold
this
on,
is a lie.
hold on, Ben.
The Department of Homeland Security
But hold
said
on, Ben.
you guys are now just
Ben.
And
making
here's the
stuff
reg.
up.
Here's
One
the reg.
second.
Chapter
One
11,
second.
B. Potentially divisive symbols and flags. 1. Potentially divisive symbols and flags include, but are not limited to, the following. A noose, a swastika. There it is.
Okay.
Homeland Security.
We are
Again,
gonna
Homeland
use-
Security saying,
Okay,
y'all
hold on
gotta
a
take
second
those
here.
things
We're
out.
gonna,
There is the reg.
and we're gonna use our thinking. We're gonna put our thinking caps
I use it
on,
every day.
Okay. You read that statement. That is not actually what they are denying. Is not actually what the Washington Post story says. The Washington Post story doesn't say that it's not prohibited. It says that it has been reclassified from a hate symbol to something that is, quote, potentially divisive.
So
Paul just read the.
So
Paul
you
just
are
read it.
to be clear.
So
you guys think
so,
if
Ben,
you think if
Ben,
a news
let me
shows
finish,
up,
please.
no one's going to get in
Ben,
trouble.
let me finish. So when the Washington Post puts out this story, and then the Coast Guard says we're gonna take another look at this, that is an acknowledgement that in the writing they have changed how it is characterized in writing. And to Paul's point, that is what really matters at the end of the day.
No, it
Is
matters what the Coast Guard leadership said this afternoon.
No, that's
You-
spin.
That's
That's
You can
spin.
read it as many
That's
times
spin.
as you want.
So you're saying
But
don't
they are
trust the
denying-
Coast
Do you think
Guard.
it's going to stay this way? Do you think
They
they're
are
going to change
denying
it?
something
I
that
think
is not
I
ever
think when the
alleged.
Coast
You think
Guard
they're going
comes
to change
out,
it?
Can I just
You think
say-
they're
I think when
gonna
the
change it?
Coast Guard comes out and says it the way that they said it, I go back
It's
to
in
what
the
he said.
regulation.
This is a ridiculous
They have
story
to
they're
change
saying
it.
is not accurate from the
They have
Post.
to change. It's absolutely accurate, and it has to be changed.
What's clearly
Coast Guard will
happened
change
here
it.
Is this is a regulation that
This is how nuts things have gotten that Ben Ferguson is defending. I mean, he's pointing to a tweet that he says justifies everything when the bottom line here is the policy, the regulation has been changed. What was the need for the regulation to change? What was the need for the regulation to soften? Not a tweet that's like, oh, we'll take another look at the regulation we just changed. Why soften our stance on a swastika? Potentially divisive? How many of our grandparents and great-grandparents died fighting the Third Reich, right? Gave their lives to beat back and defeat those who fought beneath a swastika. There's not gray area. And I think the Ben Fergusons of the world are arguing, well, let's not be woke about it. Right? Pete Hegseth has white nationalist tattoos, lest we forget. A lot of the language that Stephen Miller uses is directly evocative of Joseph Goebbels. We're not just throwing terms around here. That's what Republicans did under Obama. Republicans compared Obama to Adolf Hitler, which is about as absurd a comparison as I can possibly make. So when Ben Ferguson gets outraged and says, yeah, but what about Democrats comparing Trump to Adolf Hitler and the Nazis? Well, you can draw a direct line to it. You can look at the actions this administration has taken to undermine our democracy, and you can compare them to other regimes, including World War II Germany, that took systematic step-by-step actions to try and change, in their case it was successful, a democracy into authoritarianism. And we see that playbook being followed, or at least certainly attempting to follow this playbook here in the United States. So it's not the same thing. And I just to go back to this idea of the president, the fact that senators even felt the need to make a video, and these are people that served in the intelligence community, that served in the armed forces, to remind active service people that it is illegal. It is your duty not to follow illegal orders. That's just the law. They're just stating the law. That's like saying rain falls from the sky. It is the legal responsibility of active service people is to not follow an illegal order. Not just, you don't have to, but it's actually your duty not to. That's just a statement of law. And the president not only calls them seditious for making such a video, he points out that sedition is punishable by death. And he has recently doubled down on it. And Ben Ferguson, his only defense of that is what about? What about Biden? What about Democrats? There's no argument. I wish that Abby Phillips would hold the iron to his feet and say, do you agree that the video was seditious? Do you agree that these people who are committing a seditious act should be punished with death? Because there is no commonsensical answer to that. It's absurd on its face, and I would argue it's treasonous. But this is what's coming out of the White House from our acting president. They are trying to sane-wash it. They are trying to gaslight us. They are trying to normalize it and make it seem like, well, you have your opinions, we have ours. You think a swastika is a symbol of hate. We think it's a potentially divisive symbol, but let's not be woke about it. And I think they come on in their sharp suits and their, clean-cut, smirking faces, and they try and make it sound like we're crazy for even bringing this up. And they, like the other guy did, they're sort of like, you're saying this. Well, nobody at the table actually said this. We're asking questions. You refuse to defend. And so you pivot and you what about, and then you turn it back on us and accuse us. Are they fundraising against it? Are they fundraising against it? I don't know. That's not the point. That's not the point. The point is they made a video stating the law that the president interpreted as being anti his policies and accused them of sedition. It's actually remarkably simple. I have a special place in my heart for Scott Jennings. I think this guy is he's especially he's especially dangerous and toxic. And I think Ben Ferguson just caught up with him in his nose and nose in my book. These guys, it's just absolutely disgusting to me. I can't, the thought, how do you sleep at night? But then when you watch him, like they're getting so good at it, I really think that they've rewired their brains. I think they've convinced themselves that this is actually the way forward for this country. And it's as un-American a way forward as I can imagine. Maybe I'm overreacting. Are we all just being hysterical? I think the evidence is mountainous. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. I mean, if you're watching this video, it's called Progressive Perspective. I doubt that you disagree with me, but if you think I'm missing something important, or I'm going too far, or I'm making too much out of this, let me know in the comments. There's plenty to say about this. I just think it's absolute insanity. Let me know what you think.